Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Guide to IT. Thanks for joining me for this first episode. I'm going to discuss how to make the best CV and cover letter you possibly can to make a good first impression and help you to stand out from the competition. Before I dive into the meat of the episode, however, I want to briefly talk about my background, what motivated me to create these videos. I've worked in quite a few different jobs over the years. My first real job straight from school was joining the Merchant Navy as a navigating officer, which I did for several years. I've also worked as a hotel manager, a labourer, a security team leader, and I've worked nights stacking shelves in a supermarket. All of these different jobs each taught me something, even if it was that I didn't want to go back to doing them. During this time, I've lived and worked in several countries, mainly the UK, the US, and New Zealand. Throughout it all, I've always had a passion for IT, but I didn't have the faintest idea how to go about getting a job in IT. I finally decided to just go for it and make a big push to follow my passion, and this resulted in me going back to school in my mid-30s to do a course in WellTech here in New Zealand. Shortly after starting the course, I found out my wife was pregnant with our first child. I was working part-time, doing full-time study, and had my first child on the way. The doubt I had about whether this was the right thing for me to be doing at this time in my life was strong. Fortunately, I had an amazing group of friends, family, and co-workers, all of which supported me fully and had confidence in me when I was lacking it myself. I graduated from my course and managed to get a 1-month contract with Stats NZ to help on the service desk. In the middle of that 1-month contract, my son was born. In the 6 years since then, I've gone from being that fixed-term contractor to full-time into service desk team leader, operations manager, and then finally to my current role, which is the manager of digital business services and operations at Stats. None of that would have happened without the awesome group of people who have helped and supported me along the way. And that brings me to the main driver of why I want to set up this channel and the Discord server that goes along with it. I want to give others the chance to learn the things I wish I could have known at the start, but just as importantly, I want to build a community where people can feel comfortable to ask questions, learn, and maybe find the support that for whatever reason they have not been so lucky to receive that I was. Today, we're going to start at the beginning with a quick look at CVs, cover letters, and the kind of things that employers look for. Cover letters are something I personally always like. It's your opportunity to stand out from the crowd, and it shows that you care enough about the role to take the extra time to communicate that. If the job advert does not ask you for a cover letter, it's your choice, but I would always recommend it. If it's specifically asked for, then I would do it. You'd be surprised how many people ignore this, and it always leaves a bad impression. Generally speaking, if there's something which the employer's gone to the trouble of specifically asking you to do, there's a reason for that. And if you don't follow it, again, it just shows that you're not that interested. Your cover letter and CV don't have to be this huge, massive thing. Generally, only 1 or 2 pages for each one of them is more than enough. If your CV is running 4 to 5 pages and up, you need to look at condensing it. The person or people reviewing the CVs will thank you, and it's going to reduce the risk of them missing relevant info in all the clutter. A simple way to look at everything you put in your CV and cover letter is ask yourself, would this answer the question a hiring manager might have? As much as possible, you don't want to leave unanswered questions that might raise concerns. In a competitive market, not leaving the person who is doing the initial review of the CV and cover letters with outstanding questions might well be the difference between you making it to the shortlist or not. Some things to think about. Did they ask for anything specific they were looking for in an applicant? If it's a specific skill set or experience working with a particular system, make sure that's covered in your CV. If it's a particular behavior they're looking for, explain how you're a good fit in the cover letter with an example where possible. If you've got a gap in your work experience where you have on your CV, explain it in your cover letter. To be clear, it's not a bad thing to have a gap. It happens, life happens, most employers will recognize that. But again, it's the explanation for it. Put it in there, be honest, cover this stuff off. It's a lot better than just leaving a gap where people can have a concern or unfilled question. If you're applying for a role which is based in a different location to the address that you put in your CV, so it could be a different city or even a different country, explain in your cover letter why you're applying for a job in a different location, such as you're looking to relocate. That's fine, but again, just don't leave that as an open question. If you're applying for a position that involves working remotely and there's anything that might interfere with your work, such as a big time zone difference, or you've got to work around child drop-offs, for example, put that in there, explain it, be upfront with all that kind of thing. It's so much better just to be front foot this stuff, get it out there. Does the job involve shift work or on-call requirements? Show that you understand that requirement and what it means, and that you're comfortable with it. If you got any previous experience with that kind of work, draw attention to it. It's a good thing to put in the cover letter. The CV is the facts and information that demonstrate you've got the skills and abilities to do the job. The cover letter is your chance to demonstrate your motivation for doing the job and answering any questions or concerns that might come up from comparing your CV against the job description that they put out. I'm going to run through some of the things I look for when I'm going through a CV for someone applying for a job in IT. There are, of course, a lot of different jobs within the very broad category of IT, but my focus is mostly on those entry-level positions. So my experience is largely with service desk and desktop support / operations. Bear in mind that most of the things I talk about will apply to any job and not just within IT, but those are my main focus areas, so that's the lens I tend to look at. All right, so first things first, when you're putting your CV together, find a template that you like. There's a huge amount of different free templates available online, various different programs. I'm going to walk us through an example for this particular video. I'm just going to start with one of the free templates that's available in Word. You can use whatever fits you best. Just keep it simple and uncluttered. The person going through the CVs will probably have a lot to go through, and especially with the current state of the job market being as competitive as it is right now. Just going to quickly share my screen and we'll walk through some stuff. So again, as I said, this is it's a default template from Word. I'm not suggesting that this is one you want to use. I'm just using it as an example and we're going to work through it. There's going to be a bit of difference with the type of role that you're applying for. And you've got to tailor it a little bit to the audience you're going for and the type of job that you're after. So if it's for my case, I'm pretty much oblivious to the aesthetics of the CV. I am purely focused on the content. Having said that, if the role you're applying for is one heavily involving design, then your CV is actually a great opportunity to showcase what you can do in the CV itself. So obviously, if it's a more design focused, I'd definitely spend some time on the CV making sure that it looks as professional as you can, that you know how to do a good layout, that you have a good eye for design. So definitely put that in your CV, spend a bit of time on it. So this template is pretty basic, but it gives you a good starting point. You should always have your name, your contact information, and all that kind of things at the top. In this particular one, they've got a space for a picture in there. It's something I see a lot. For me, it's kind of irrelevant, and I always find it a little bit strange, but that's just personal preference, and it's definitely not something I would hold against somebody if they decide to put their picture in. I just don't think it's required. So if you really, really want to put a picture in there, go for it. For me personally, I wouldn't bother. The only thing I would add to this is links to any relevant professional sites. So for example, your LinkedIn, I would add this into your top section here for your contact information. All right, the objective. This is one of the areas that is so often a missed opportunity. It's your first chance to make an impression, and you should be looking to make the most of it. It's incredible how many CVs I read where this section is pretty much identical. It's some variation on, I'm a hardworking individual, great attention to detail, looking for an opportunity. As an employer, you'll read some version of that 90+ times for each job that you hire for. Don't be one of those applicants. If you can have something in there about why you genuinely want to get this specific job that you've applied for, For example, you want the chance to work for a larger organization than your current one. You want more opportunities for development. You want to expand your experience. You're looking to get an entry-level position to get into that career. You want just to start a career. Whatever it is that's actually genuinely important to you, put that in the objective. It's so much better to have something in there which is actually reflective of you and what you want, rather than just a generic statement that you think an interviewer is going to want to hear. And on a personal note, it annoys the hell out of me when someone puts attention to detail in their CV and then either doesn't spell check it or spell checks it and chooses the wrong word, or leaves things in there which they've put in for it. You can tell it's from a different role. Don't do that. Especially if you want to put that attention and detail in, you better make sure that that CV is perfect. Whatever is important to you, you want to include it. It's about showing a genuine interest in the role and explaining why you applied right up front. If you can get that in there, you've probably already made it at least to the long list selection. For a position where it's entry level and your experience and specific technical skills aren't a factor, a good objective and a decent cover letter will probably get you an interview. Just on that, if nothing else is relevant. Moving on to the next section, experience. Pretty self-explanatory section. There are a few things to consider though. If you're new to the job market, obviously this can be quite daunting because you're not going to have that work experience to put in there. But do think about anything you can put in that experience section. So if you've got volunteer work, part-time work, be sure to include it. Even if it's not relevant to the job you're applying for, at least you can show that you've got some experience with what's expected from you as part of a job, and it all helps. It's always a little bit difficult when someone's had no experience in the workforce at all. It's just the general stuff, from timekeeping to understanding what's expected of you in an office especially, or just work environment. If you may be changing careers and you've got a lot of work experience, such as myself, but it's all in a different field, I would still include it, but maybe just highlight the skills and experience you think is relevant and transferable. So for example, if you'd done another role which had customer service experience and you're applying for a service desk or a desktop support role, I would pull out that part of the job. It's always a good starting point for working in IT, for anything with service desk or desktop support. But more and more now, any of the roles, even like a DevOps team or a developer or stuff which traditionally didn't focus on those soft skills and customer service, more and more they're being aligned to different business units and you're working directly with the people you're going to be supporting. So some soft skills really are important for pretty much anything in IT, and that's not always been the case, but that's definitely the way things are heading. If you find you've got a lot of work history to include, it's okay to condense the list, in my opinion. Some people always put everything. Some just give, the 4 or 5 most recent examples. It's up to you. Personally, I would include as much as you feel comfortable with. If it's not relevant, just leave it at the bare minimum. So just like it's got here, the title, the job position, and the name of the company, and then the dates that it was from and to. And just leave it at that. Only take the time to expand on the stuff if it's relevant. And again, if you've got gaps, always put a quick explanation in there. You don't have to put it here. You could put it in the cover letter. Just have it somewhere so that there's an explanation. Education section. Again, it's pretty straightforward. I would just keep it to the basic facts unless you've got a specific area that you want to highlight or something which you might want to explain. So for example, I've got a degree in nautical science. That means nothing to majority of people, but breaking down a bit of what that entails. So like, it includes contract law, it includes various different sections which people might not be aware of from the title of the qualification. So put some clarity into it for that, but otherwise keep it fairly straightforward, keep it fairly basic. Skills section. So you can include any major achievements you want to highlight. If you do, then give specific examples. So, and again, they've put in here like communication and leadership, for example. Anything that you think it's genuinely a major skill or something you've got experience in, or it's transferable. So again, using the example we gave before, you've got customer service in there, and it could be a completely different field, but if you've had any kind of customer facing role, that's a good one to put in there for your communication and your customer service. Throw that in there and explain it. Trying to give specific examples as to where your experience in that skill comes from, as much as possible. Also in this section, this is where I would add any extracurricular activities, sports, clubs you're a member of, hobbies, things like that. It's not a required thing, but it's one of the areas where the CV, although it's unlikely to have an effect on the decision to give you an interview, it can be really helpful when it comes to the interview itself. If you've got a good interview panel, one, it helps them understand a bit more about who you are as a person, which can be important for assessing whether you're going to be a good fit for the team that's already there or the organization as a whole. But also, it gives them a good icebreaker. So if you come into that interview and you're really nervous, and you sometimes get it and people are really, they just clam up. They come in, they're really nervous. Something like that gives you a nice icebreaker and a way to start a conversation to get people a bit more comfortable. So help them to help you. Put something in there which is going to give them that chance to ask questions, expand, put you at ease at the start of an interview. References available upon request, always acceptable thing to put here. You can add names, roles, contact information if you want to. Personally, I would recommend against it. I'd always make sure anyone you're going to be putting down as a reference is expecting to be contacted. So you checking in with them also serves as a confirmation that their contact information hasn't changed and that they're happy to do it still. Your reference should always include your most recent employer or manager if it's possible. And if you don't have any employment history, try to avoid using family or friends, even if it's like a teacher or a lecturer or anyone you've worked with a volunteer organization, anything that's not a direct family or friends, because then it kind of undermines the whole reference, really. So just try to give someone who's a bit more of an objective reference. And it can be hard, especially when you're trying to get that first step in, but do what you can. Usually teachers, lecturers, they're quite happy to provide a reference, and it's a good starting point. So that's it, basically. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please like the video, hit the subscribe button on the channel, and be kept up to date and notified when I release new content. It doesn't cost anything to hit the subscribe button, and it makes all the difference in helping people to find my information when they need it, which is the whole point of this channel. I'd love to hear any feedback you might have, questions or suggestions for future content. You can drop it in the comments, you can contact me through the website, or you can join the Discord channel, which I will leave to a link in the description below. As I mentioned before, I'm also hoping to build a community on Discord where everyone is welcome. You can ask questions, give feedback, support each other, and share advice. So do check that out if you think you might be interested. Thank you for sticking with me this far. It's the end of the video now, but before I go, I just want to say a big thank you to some of the people who have supported me on my journey, because without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. I hope I don't miss anyone. If I do, it was not intentional. You are awesome as well. So in roughly chronological order, because why not? Well, family, you're all awesome. I appreciate always having your support in whatever I'm doing, even when you do think I am crazy. To Charlie and Jesse, who always made me look forward to going to work and really helped me to settle into my life in New Zealand when I came here. Adam, for his support, encouragement, and flexibility, and allowing me to work part-time while I went to Welltech and studied to get into IT. All my lecturers at Welltech, but a special shout out to Diana and Leonie for your engaging lessons. They really taught me a lot, and It's adding that practical advice and the real life experience that's just as important as the class learnings themselves. It really does help in terms of setting the student up for what to expect in the workforce. Everyone at Stats, in particular, Sonia, Brian, Daryl, Chris Buxton, Michael, all of you for putting up with my questions over the years, your support, and just all the different huge variety of things I've come to you guys for advice on, and your belief that I would figure it all out eventually. Maybe one day I will, who knows. And lastly, a huge thank you to my wife, Marina. Without you and your unique combination of encouragement and savage ass kickings, none of this journey would have been possible. So I love you. And on that note, goodbye.